Coming up on tonight's broadcast, quarterback Ryan Katz plans to transfer, American Airlines files for bankruptcy, and a large-scale labor strike in Britain. All that and more right here on your Beaver News.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday evening edition of the Beaver News. We're glad to have you with us. I'm Mackenzie Allen.
And I'm Hayden Wilcox. With the pressures of finals week looming down on OSU students this week, many teachers are worried about student cheating, and for good reason. Some believe that larger classes have made it harder for professors to police students' actions, but one can't deny that modern technology is making it easier for students to cheat on tests, assessments, and papers, making professors across the nation understandably wary. Polina Balahova of the Daily Barometer reports a reminder from the OSU Office of Registrar that people who cheat, either by copying the answers off of someone else's test or by plagiarizing documents, run the risk of losing their degrees and ultimately being kicked out of campus. The official mandate given by the office defines academic dishonesty, or cheating, as, quote, an act of deception in which a student seeks to claim credit for the work or effort of another person, or uses unauthorized materials or fabricated information in an academic work or research, either through the student's own efforts or the efforts of another, end quote. Although the extreme of being kicked out of campus happens very rarely, the office would like to remind students that professors are cracking down on suspected cases of plagiarism and academic dishonesty.
After a season that found the presumed starting quarterback Ryan Katz playing second string to redshirt freshman Sean Mannion, it has been officially announced that Katz has been granted a release from the football program by the university and intends to transfer. Warner Strasburg of the Daily Barometer reports that Katz will graduate this March and will be eligible to play next year for any non-Pac-12 university so long as he is also enrolled in postgraduate work. In an OSU athletics press release, Katz said, quote, after discussing this with my family, I have decided to seek other academic and athletic opportunities. I have been granted my release from Oregon State, and I plan to transfer as a graduate student with 1 year of eligibility remaining, end quote. Katz started all 12 games last year and 2 of the previous year. His last game starting for OSU was the September 3rd overtime loss to Sacramento State at home earlier this year.
A controversy arose earlier this school year when Oregon Court of Appeals moved to invalidate a law which prohibited the possession of weapons on Oregon University campuses. Due to this invalidation, it became possible for students and members of the community to own and carry concealed weapons across campus. Recently, however, the Oregon University system has decided not to challenge this ruling. As reported by Camille Jacobson Ingram of the Daily Barometer, Diane Saunders, Director of Communications for OUS, said, quote, we have decided not to appeal the ruling of the court, but to instead to work on our own internal regulation policies. Student safety and a safe, secure learning environment are the key concerns for us, so anything that inhibits this type of environment or brings additional risk onto the campus concerns the Oregon University system, end quote. That being said, OUS is determined to enforce safe environments where firearms are strictly banned. These environments include sporting events and residence halls. As of now, OUS is working on further programs that will put further limits on handguns here on campus.
A new Senate bill is being presented with the purpose of promoting Oregon's system of higher education with a more flexible and effective use of resources. James Shreve of the Daily Barometer reports that Bill 242 would create a 15-member committee appointed by the governor. According to the bill, the Higher Education Coordinating Commission will coordinate, quote, post-secondary policy between the Oregon University system and community colleges in the state, end quote. It also redefines OUS as a public university system rather than a state agency, giving it authority, independence, and the ability to run itself more effectively. The bill would also do away with the Office of Degree Authorization and would transfer all duties, functions, and powers to the Commission. Though some are concerned that it might take time to iron out all the details with this new plan, there is hope that a greater percentage of tuition earnings by the universities would be able to go back to students through scholarships and grants rather than to the state.
Having trouble getting sleep in these study-filled weeks? The answer is not a trick, and you most definitely know it too. It's exercise. A new study conducted by OSU seeks to emphasize and better explain benefits that physical activity has for sleep. In a national represented sample of more than 2,600 men and women aged 18 to 85, the study concluded that up to 40% of the population has trouble falling asleep. However, simply by adding 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a week, reports of 65% improvements in sleep quality were recorded. Brad Cardinal, a professor of exercise science and one of the authors of the study, said, quote, "Physical activity may not just be good for the waistline and heart, but can also help you sleep. There are trade-offs. It may be easier when you are tired to skip the workout and go straight to sleep, but it may be beneficial for your longer-term health to make the hard decision and get your exercise." End quote. So, for less than 3 hours in a 168-hour week, you could get your body and mind ready for work and finals.
According to research conducted by OSU professor and faculty associate in family policy, Bobby Weber, family income levels have not been able to keep pace with the rapidly increasing cost of childcare. Weber conducted the research through the Child Care Research and Referral Network and says that it is now the state's responsibility to do something about it. He also insists that the problem is not that the caretakers are being paid too much, but rather that families in the state of Oregon have been seeing a decrease to their income. Kelly Ward of the Daily Barometer reports that in response to his work on the subject and his view of childcare as a form of early education, Weber has been appointed by Governor Kitzhaber to work on a committee to redesign kindergarten through university education through the Early Education Plan.
Having trouble registering for classes? Well, you're not alone. Students are finding it harder than ever to register for courses, particularly major-specific ones, reports the Daily Barometer. Allison Boyce, Jr. in the health promotion, commented, quote, "The problem is the classes that are major-specific fill up with senior students before we can register for them. With the way the system is set up and the amount of credits and prerequisites you need to get into certain major-specific classes, it makes it really difficult to graduate on time." End quote. The university has recognized this problem and has responded by recently hiring 80 new faculty members from institutions such as Harvard, MIT, and Cornell. The university is confident that this will help ease the pressure off of registering as OSU's record enrollments of 25,500 students try to get into classes. OSU's president Ed Ray also commented that the new hires are vital not just to the university, but to Oregon's future economic success. He said, quote, "Oregon will be prepared to compete in the global marketplace of tomorrow with a highly educated workforce supporting the state's companies and industries." We now go to reporter Cassidy Gilroy from the Eugene Ballet's production of the holiday favorite, The Nutcracker.
Holiday tradition came a little early to the LaSalle Stewart Center this year as the Eugene Ballet Company presented The Nutcracker. Every year in cities all across the country, this classic story is told for audiences of all ages. The Eugene Ballet Company left the beautiful Holt Center in Eugene to come to Corvallis on the 17th of November for the one-night-only performance. The Nutcracker, with original music composed by Pyotr Tchaikovsky, has been a Christmas classic that has been passed on from generation to generation since the mid-1900s. I had the opportunity to chat with the company director, Miss Toni Pimble.
I've been running the Eugene Ballet Company for over 30 years, so I've been involved. I am the Eugene Ballet.
Founded in 1978, the Eugene Ballet Company has become world-renowned for its mastery and stunning displays of hundreds of different ballets, including classic pieces like Swan Lake, Cinderella, Romeo and Juliet, and Don Quixote. What inspired you to create a ballet company in America? Because I believe you were born in England.
Yes, I was born in England, and I worked in Germany for 7 years before I moved here. Actually, what really happened was that Riley Brennan and I moved here to take over the ballet school in Eugene. And we thought, we might start a little performing group. Well, we weren't here a month before someone asked us to create a ballet for a chamber orchestra. By 1980, I think it was, we were doing the Nutcracker with the symphony, the Eugene Symphony, and then we took over the Nutcracker totally. We owned it. A lot of touring, and we've toured internationally, as you know, to Taiwan and throughout Asia, including Sri Lanka, which is where you're from.
What's the it like dealing with several age groups in a single performance?
It can be challenging, but we have a lot of help. Everywhere we go with the Nutcracker, we work with the local children. And what we do is we send out our dancers early in the year, in September, to audition the children in each of the venues that we tour in. And they teach them the parts, and then the local ballet teacher rehearses them until we show up. Then, like today, we have an afternoon rehearsal with the children on stage, and that's the only rehearsal they get with us.
So, as I understand it, you also give dance lessons in Eugene?
Yes, we do. We have the Eugene Ballet Academy. Well, our school is mainly focused on teaching good classical ballet. The kids do other things as well, but we also have a youth company attached to the ballet companies.
I also had the opportunity to interview one of the dancers who gave us a quick insight about what she's learned in the program.
I learned many variations from every type of ballet out there, pretty much contemporary movements.
When asked about what is unique about this performance, Miss Pimble said she added her own personal flair to her performance of the Nutcracker by introducing her own character into the show.
And in my story, in her dream, her Nutcracker comes to save her, and then her Nutcracker in her dream turns into Hans, and then Hans takes her off into the land of sweets.
The Eugene Ballet Company will be performing numerous times in the coming months, bringing this heartwarming tale to families across the nation. This has been Cassidy Goodroy from the LaSalle Stewart Center reporting for KBVR News.
Thank you, Cassidy. After an on-field altercation that drew national attention, Lions defensive tackle Dominican Suh has been suspended for the next 2 games without pay. CNN is reporting that after the Green Bay Packers' Evan Dietrich Smith blocked Suh on the ground on Thursday, Suh turned him over, shoved his helmet into the turf, and eventually stood up to stomp on Dietrich Smith's arm. After the game, Suh denied any wrongdoing, insisting that he was only trying to get up and regain his balance, before eventually backtracking and apologizing. The suspension will result in Suh losing around $164,000 in game day pay and potentially cost his team a wild card berth to the NFL playoffs.
Basketball fans rejoice. It looks like we'll have a season after all. After a nearly 5-month lockout, NBA players and owners have finally reached a tentative deal and are scheduled to begin playing once more by Christmas Day, reports CNN. The lockout, which was in response to the league's 30 owners and their players debating how much of their revenues should go to the owners and how much should be for pensions and medical benefits. Additionally, salary caps and taxes were issues that were brought up. Derek Fisher, the president of the NBA, thanked the NBA fans, saying, quote, "Our fans and the support from the people and their patience through a large part of this process. That's where a lot of the credit goes to. The efforts that have been made have been largely with them in mind," end quote. It's not confirmed how many games will be played in the season, though at least 66 are to be expected. To accomplish this, some teams will have to play back-to-back games. The regular season will begin on the 25th of December and play until the 26th of April.
Conrad Murray, the doctor convicted of involuntary manslaughter in the death of Michael Jackson, was sentenced today to 4 years in jail. CNN is reporting that while 4 years is the maximum sentence, it is more likely that Murray will end up serving only 2 years behind bars for good behavior. Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Michael Pastor had this to say before announcing his sentence, quote, "There are those who feel Dr. Murray is a saint. There are those who feel Dr. Murray is the devil. He's neither. He's a human being. He stands convicted of the death of another human being," end quote. With good behavior, Murray would be released late in 2013.
We all know how Black Friday is. The day is filled with hype, huge deals, and of course, the highly competitive shopping spirit. That's just what we expect. This year, however, the Black Friday shoppers got more than they bargained for as violence broke out in several stores across the country. As reported by CNN, several shoppers ended up assaulting other shoppers inside stores in order to claim their coveted prize. In Los Angeles Walmart, a woman ended up pepper spraying several individuals in order to buy a game console and games. 10 people were incapacitated by the spray, while the assailant was able to purchase her items before the police arrived on the scene. Similar incidents happened at or near Walmart stores in 7 states around the country, including South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, New York, Alabama, and Connecticut. These incidents are not entirely uncommon to Walmart, with customers having shown a tendency towards violence around this time, such as in 2008 when an employee was trampled by customers after he had unlocked the doors to allow them in. Some believe that the violence and aggressive attitudes isn't entirely the fault of the customers, and that the sales held by stores are encouraging this hyper-competitive behavior. Psychologist Jeff Garter has this to say to CNN in regards to the store's strategy. Quote, "They shouldn't be psyching them up so much and using all sorts of psychological tactics to get them to feed on this desperation and competitive spirit. I think people are whipped into a frenzy, physically and psychologically," end quote. Other shopping disturbances included, but were not limited to, theft, robbery, and shootings.
The parent company to American Airlines, AMR, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection earlier today. CNN reports that American Airlines and all other AMR subsidiaries will continue to honor tickets and reservations during the process, using the $4.1 billion the company currently has. Thomas W. Horton, Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, and President of AMR and American Airlines, had the following to say in a statement released to the press. Quote, "This was a difficult decision, but it is the necessary and right path for us to take, and take now, to become a more efficient, financially stronger, and competitive airline."
Sirhan Sirhan, the man convicted of assassinating presidential candidate Robert Kennedy, has been jailed unjustly, or so says new evidence that his defense attorney filed earlier this week. As reported by CNN, the attorneys are filing for his release or retrial based on formidable evidence that asserts his innocence. Additionally, Sirhan's lawyers also claim that recently uncovered evidence of 2 shooters in the 1968 assassination and that Sirhan's gun was not in play. Furthermore, they assert that Sirhan was, quote, "an involuntary participant in the crimes being committed because he was subjected to sophisticated hypno-programming and memory implantation techniques, which rendered him unable to consciously control his thoughts and actions at the time the crimes were being committed," end quote. An analysis of the recently uncovered audio tape of the assassination confirmed the multiple weapons fired. Sirhan has claimed for decades that he cannot remember the incident, and while it is only through recent extensive memory experiments can he recall the day, whether he was in fact hypno-programmed remains to be confirmed. We're now heading into our final break of the evening, but when we return we'll have your remaining stories, including one man who was using white paint to bring snow to a previously barren mountains. All that and more right here on the Beaver News.
Welcome back to the Beaver News live on Channel 26. In the annual Mercer's Quality of Living Index, the city of Vienna, Austria, was named the best city to live in for the 3rd consecutive year. CNN reports that rounding out the top 5 are Zurich, Switzerland, Auckland, New Zealand, Munich, Germany, Dusseldorf, Germany, and Vancouver, Canada. Vancouver was the only North American city to rank in the top 10 of the 221 cities surveyed. The report looks at several factors, including political and economic stability, culture, health and sanitation, quality of schools, public services, and housing. Baghdad came in as the least desirable city to live in, with Dubai ranking as the highest of any Middle Eastern city at number 74.
Here at OSU, scientists have done a lot of research in regards to the environment, with studies about how weather, pollution, plant, and animal life affect our environment. But there is one man in the Peruvian Andes who is making his own change in the environment. When we think of mountains, we immediately think of the white fluffy stuff. You may have skied on it, you may have built things out of it, but mountains have always been known for snow. The case is the same in the Andes, or at least it was. For the past few decades, people of the mountain town of Licapa, Peru, have not seen snow, and the place where water is necessity, it has driven many people away. But a very simple observation by a Peruvian man could change all that. The observation: black rocks in the mountain absorb heat, and therefore it becomes too hot for ice to form. His solution: paint the rocks white. As reported by CNN, Eduardo Gold has taken it upon himself to help bring ice back to the town of Licapa by painting the rocks white with his own special mixture of water, sand, and lime, with a little added soap to make it stick. Mr. Gold is founder of Peru Glaciers, a program designed to bring ice back to the mountains. The craziest part about this story is that the plan is actually starting to work. Thermometers show that the white rocks are about 30 degrees cooler than the surrounding rocks, and since he began, ice is actually formed in the painted area. As of now, Mr. Gold has covered 15,000 square meters and dreams to cover over 3 billion meters. With some financial help, of course.
Britain is bracing for a mass disruption to schools, hospitals, and other public sector jobs Wednesday, as up to 2 million workers are expected to walk out over proposed pension reforms. CNN reports that negotiations between the government and unions to try to ward off the industrial action broke down in the days leading up to the strike. Travelers trying to enter the country may be forced to deal with long lines, as many border control officers will also be striking. In a statement released by Brendan Barber, General Secretary of the Trades Union Congress, quote, "Public servants are no longer being asked to make a temporary sacrifice, but accept a permanent deep cut in their living standards that will add up to over 16% by 2015 when you include pay and pension contributions," end quote. The 2 million on strike are coming from up to 30 different unions, some of whom will be striking for the first time.
When we think of heart attacks, we usually associate it with poor health, a sedentary lifestyle, and of course, bad eating habits. We know to stay away from greasy foods that block our arteries, but many Americans are wondering, what else should we stay away from? Well, Dr. Cadwell Azelstein Jr. isn't a dietitian, but during his research as a surgeon, he found that there are certain cultures in the world, such as Papua New Guinea Highlanders, rural Chinese, and Central Africans, and the Tarahumara Indians of Mexico that have never experienced heart attacks. As reported by CNN, Dr. Azelstein's study went on to prove that a very specific diet can actually prevent heart attacks. He goes on to explain that the typical Western diet, which is full of meat, eggs, dairy, and added oils, is the leading cause in the creation of heart disease, and that the best way to fight it is to remove these foods altogether. Heart disease, caused by massive amounts of cholesterol in the bloodstream, which in turn build up and become plaque, is the #1 killer of Americans, according to the American Heart Association. The diet, known as the Azelstein diet, is quickly gaining popularity among the elderly, but he also encourages that the diet be matched with focus on physical activity and weight consciousness. Dr. Azelstein made comment in regards to his diet, quote, "We are on the cusp of what could be an absolute revolution in health, not dependent on pills, procedures, or operations, but on lifestyle."
Vice President Joe Biden arrived in Baghdad today on a previously unannounced trip to Iraq. CNN reports that while there, Biden will meet with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, President Jalal Talabani, and other top political leaders. This is the Vice President's 8th visit to Iraq since being elected and comes just months before the majority of American troops are scheduled to withdraw, according to terms in the most recent U.S.-Iraqi Security Pact. Of the approximately 11,000 troops in Iraq, down from 50,000 3 months earlier, only about 150 are expected to remain after the deadline, a U.S. official previously told CNN. Though at least 13 people were killed on Monday, when a suicide bomber drove his vehicle into a security checkpoint at a prison in Baghdad, White House reports indicate that violence in the area is at an all-time low since 2003. That's all the news we have for you tonight, but be sure to tune in the rest of the week at 7 p.m. for our final 2 shows of the term. Have a good evening and good luck with the end of the term, everyone.